Hey everyone, I've literally just finished building a keyword research workflow in n8n that can replace your conventional tools of Surfer SEO, Ahrefs, and SEMrush, saving you a ton of money. It also connects with an AI agent to automatically categorize and cluster the keywords, saving you hours of time sort of sifting through the useless ones. We've also connected it with your Google Search Console property. So this means that you can see which keywords you already have content ranking for. So if I just give you a bit of insight into what the output looks like. So this is the spreadsheet that is automatically generated by the n8n workflow that I'll take you through. But quickly, what are some of these categories? So we've got a cluster column, so it groups similar keywords together. We've of course got our target keyword. We've got our monthly search volumes. We've got our categories here, so it sorts through whether they're top, middle, or bottom funnel, as well as a page type. We've added cost per click and keyword difficulty as well. Don't know if you like those metrics. We do personally. And then impressions, click, CTR, position. This is all pulled from your Google Search Console property. So we can see in this instance, focus keyword B2B marketing strategy, that we've got loads of keywords we could target because we don't have any content that currently ranks for it in Google at the moment. So this has been a really good selection for us. We've also down here got a number of URLs that rank for that keyword. So if you've got, 2, 3, 4 keywords that are showing impressions for, 2, 3, 4 URLs that are showing for a single keyword, that could suggest sort of cannibalization, things like that. And then we've also given the top URL by impressions and by clicks as well. So which URL is Google showing the most for that keyword, and then which one's getting the most clicks as well. So super useful if you run a C keyword, you want to understand if you've got any content that's already targeting it. So the workflow that generated it looks a little bit like this. If I zoom out, it's actually running through generation at the moment, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is take you through each of these nodes sort of step by step, how I built them, but doing it retrospectively. So in some of my previous videos, I've actually done them as a live build. I'm going to test this format to see if it's a little bit more cleaner, a little bit more efficient, and really to see if you guys prefer this sort of methodology of learning how to use n8n as well. Now, the beauty with n8n is that there's an infinite number of ways to build these workflows and these formulas. This is a system that works very well for us. We're a B2B performance marketing agency, so we've got a lot of clients, we've got a lot of demands. So that means we have a lot of metrics, a lot of keywords that we need to do keyword research for quite regularly. So this works really well for us. So what I will do is take you through all of this node by node, how it's all sort of put together. I will also add as well that I used GPT-5 to help sort of support the build of this. I'm not a developer. This is a no-code tutorial. But also, if you're not that interested in learning how we built it, that's also fine. If you sign up to the link in the description, you'll be taken to a Notion board that looks a little bit like this. Now, this Notion board has the show notes for every single video that I've created. If you jump into the first link here, you can actually download the JSON file and then upload it directly into your n8n instance. And I do give a short walkthrough as to how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. Also give you an oversight of what the final workflow looks like, and also give you some of my prompts in here as well. So I pretty much give you everything away. But if you want to learn how I built this from the ground up, then stick around. This video will be for you. I will run through a demo of how all of this works. So if that's for you, then stay tuned. Now, as I've got a live execution going on at the moment, I will be able to sort of show you node by node all the data that's been used and passed through, which should be super useful for you guys. But to begin, we actually start with a Slack command. So I have a variety of ways in which these workflows can be triggered. Our team operate in Slack, so there's a lot less friction if this can be triggered via Slack, and the team don't necessarily need to go into n8n to trigger the workflow, which might bring some confusion. Okay, so if I go /KWR, you can already see that this triggers a sort of a command hint before I press anything. Just pasted in the field requirements. Now, if I press on the app here, you can actually see I've added the hints down here. So what we add in is the domain of the site that we're doing the keyword research for. We then add the seed keyword up at the top here. We give a country and a look back range as well. So this last one is for Search Console in particular. Now, I won't go into a huge deep dive as to how to set up the Slack integration, but I'll give you a sort of a high level walkthrough. So if you come into essentially like your Slack backend where you install your apps, you come across to build on the right hand side here. You can see we've got a handful of tools. If you go through the create new app and go through the step by step, it's pretty straightforward as to how to build this. What you will need to do is if you come into n8n, press the plus button, and then you need to create a webhook. And then this is essentially what triggers from the Slack commands. We've got one listed down here. What you would do is essentially copy the post URL, but essentially copy the production URL. Only the production URL will work in Slack, and then paste it into the system when prompted. That means your app is then set up. To get it to trigger on a command, come into /commands, and then create new command. And essentially you can give it all the details down here that's requested to run the workflow, essentially. So that's how you set up the webhook to begin. Most of the time I will create a contact form to kick it off, because I don't want to try and have issues with the integration to begin with before I've even started the workflow. So quite often I will actually start with an n8n form just to get the workflow started. And that means that I can enter the fields that I need to begin the workflow. And as we can see, actually, the system has just produced the spreadsheet that we've been running. So I can actually just give you a quick sort of outputs what this looks like. So I do have this tied into an n8n keyword research channel. So it automatically fires the spreadsheet into here when it's done. This means that the team can pick up the spreadsheet straight away. I would always recommend sort of humanizing it, give it a once over, tidy it up, make sure it looks okay before sort of sending to a client or something. That's a webhook. That's sort of how we get started with the workflow. Now, typically what I always recommend is just sort of whiteboarding like the high level view of how you want the workflow to work. Now, quite often this might detour in many different places, because that's just sort of how n8n works, to be totally honest with you. But we've got our inputs at the top here. We then need to format the data. We then want to essentially match the domain that I've put into the input with what we've got in Google Search Console, so the system can take the domain I've added, do a run through of all our Search Console properties, match it up. We then want to trigger the keyword scraper. We then want to run this through the AI agent. We then actually want to start putting in the Search Console data, and then we want to put it into Google Sheets. So it seems pretty simple when we whiteboard it like this, but this is also quite good just to keep us on track. And remember that you can screenshot this into ChatGPT if needed as well. So this node here, the code node, this essentially just formats the data into the right-hand, essentially what the output looks like on the right-hand side. So we've got a nice sort of clean data set that the rest of the workflow can understand, which is really important. So we have our formatter here. We then got a field mapping node. So essentially what we want to do is take all of these inputs and then have it create the sort of JSON version of that. And then this is what we pull through each node as we go through the workflow. So you'll see that I can actually pick up and drag this, and I can actually create a new sort of field with this sort of input down here. And that's the beauty of n8n, is you don't really need to write any of this. We can just put it like this. And that's the sense of how we built the whole thing. This then splits off into two directions. And I know this might seem really complicated, but it does make sense when you've used n8n for a period of time. So the first one is the set date. So when I do a look back for the last 12 months, I actually need to tell the system what today's date is, or that this is from today and previous 12 months. And then we will use this when running the Google Search Console queries. So this again is just a field mapping node, similar to the last node, and you can tell by the same sort of the pen icon in the corner. And what this snippet does here is that it will look for my date range and then format it in a way that Search Console will understand it. And how I got this code here is I will literally go back and forth with GPT-5, asking it to give me the code so that I can get the outcome that I want, which is a look back window on Google Search Console. So I've not created any of this. I don't know what half this means, to be honest. So don't worry about sort of being put off by that. This node will then look through all our Google Search Console properties. I can't really open this because it will give away all the properties that we're running. But this is created by using an HTTP request. So whenever we need to call an external site, we use an HTTP request node. You will then need to do is Google Cloud Console. So this is what it looks like up here. You'll need to create a new project. So I just create a new project for each of the workflows that I want to create. Come into credentials and create a new credential down here with an authorized redirect URL. What you then need to do is search for Google Search Console API up here. You'll just need to tick it to ensure that it's enabled, and then that will mean that you can have access to your API data. There's plenty of walkthroughs on this. I'm not going to spend this video going through into the detail of it, but in a sense, you need to pull your the URL that you've been given and plug it into your HTTP request here. Let me just get rid of this. And then that means that the system can run through your Google Search Console properties. We'll then plug this into a merge node. So as we've got two different data sets, we've got the data from the input and we've got our Search Console sort of access here. We need to put all this together into one sort of place, basically. So we put it into a merge node. We then have a code node here. We probably don't need this for this workflow. If one of our staff put in the correct domain that matches the Search Console domain, then we won't need this. But essentially this node does the matching. And again, I just asked GPT-5 to give me the code for a code node that can match up the Google Search Console property with the domain that's put in. So it looks for www versions, non-www versions, or things like that. So I probably wouldn't worry about this one too much, but it's just almost like a bit of a fallback node for us. And then the keyword research scraper. So this is probably the most interesting one. So we use Apify.com as our scraper. Reason being is that the quantity seems a lot higher and it's far cheaper. So Apify is a scraper. It gives you access to hundreds, if not thousands of APIs without shouldering the cost. So if you come onto, if you just Google Apify, come onto the Apify store, they do have a free account. Head over into Actors, and then I've given a link to this property in the show notes if you sign up to the description. So you can rent this actor, so it's like $6 a month, something like that. Come into API, go to API endpoints, scroll down, and then look for the one that's run actor synchronously and get dataset items. And then you'll get a essentially a post URL down here. So you just need to copy that. And then come back into our workflow. This again is another HTTP request node. And then you just need to paste the URL as a post down here. Scroll down, don't get scared seeing that there's a load of sort of code down here. Just toggle the send body JSON using JSON, and then to get the JSON, come back into Apify, come into information, and then the JSON is essentially down here. Now, these give you sort of hard-coded keywords and sort of factors that you want to use, that you can use rather, but we want to use the keyword that we've put into our form at the start. We've also got it in our inputs down here, but we can also put it from, actually, no, we can't put it from our webhook. Sorry, we put it from the input. That's why we have the input. So copy the JSON, make sure we've got the expression selected down here. And then the two variables, so the things that are going to change are one, the seed keywords. So essentially you just need to drop this into here. And then the second one is the country as well. So when these are dynamically set up like this will pull the data from the input node, which we've obviously triggered a couple of nodes back. So this means that it can change based on our inputs. And then the rest you can probably leave hard-coded. So we're always going to have an output in English. And then there's a few sort of account settings down here. Now, there's a few limitations with this that I haven't bothered to sort of dig into just yet, but there's a 300-second timeout limit, so the API can only run for sort of 5 minutes. If I come and show you some of my runs, whenever the workflow gets triggered, what happens is that it runs in Apify here. So Apify is essentially behind the scenes of the n8n workflow from a keyword perspective. So whenever the workflow gets triggered, so this is the run that is just completed, and we can see that we actually got over 1,000 results in 3 minutes 29 in the JSON, but I can actually open it up and actually have a look. Now, 1,000 sort of keywords, that's too much for us. Might be great for you, but probably too much for us, which is why we need to go through sort of filtering and sourcing. But again, you don't necessarily need those nodes. But you'll see within here, we've got the keyword, the search volume, CPC, KD, all of that sort of good stuff. And what happens is the API pulls all of this data directly into n8n, so we can see it all down here. We've got, yeah, over 1,000 keywords, which is pretty mad with all the sort of standard SEO metrics. Now, as I said, that's far too much for us. So I've added in these nodes just to sort of filter and sort it. So one of the big friction points for us is having so many keywords, having to sort whether they're relevant or not. So firstly, I put in an if node. So again, if you come into n8n and just type in, so I'm trying to write on my keyboard, but my keyboard's over there in my camera, whatever. Type in if, you can run an if node. So this basically means if something is true, do this. If it's false, do this. So more often than not, what this means is that if what we've configured it to do is if the keyword is greater than 10 based on the search volume, it will pass it into the AI agent. If it's 0, then it's false and it won't get passed. And again, how did I come up with this? I asked ChatGPT to give me the JSON expression to get the result that I'm looking for. I did not write any of this. I haven't even looked at it properly. I just copy and pasted it. So as we can see, from those 1,000 items, we've got 636 that have been passed to the AI agent down here and 389 that have gone to 0. So that's much better and much easier for us to look at. Now, the AI agent, AI agents are great. We're probably not using it to its maximum capacity here. An AI agent in n8n can call tools, trigger tools, really, really awesome what it can do. We're not using it to that capacity at the moment. What we want it to do is, one, cluster the keywords. So keywords that are similar to each other, we want to put those in a cluster because they're easier to sort of review. We also want to determine sort of the intent of the keywords, it's top funnel, middle funnel, or bottom funnel. And then we want to define the page type for that query as well. So let me just show you how to get this node. So come to add and just literally add in AI agent top here, and it's AI agent, this one. If you open it up, go to define prompts, and then you have, you need to add the options, get to the system message. But the first sort of prompt at the top, I see this is kind of like the guardrails. So let me show you what we've put in. So this is much shorter. So use the above rules to categorize, cluster, and assign a page type to the input keywords. Output only valid JSON. The system message is more of the detail that we're looking for. And again, I asked ChatGPT to give me this system message. And then what you might need to do is just make sure that we're putting in the dynamic fields. So whenever we want it to look at a particular domain, just make sure that we're putting in the selected, the site. So I think, again, we've pulled this from input. So I'd have just dragged this here. And then we give it a prompt just outlining what it needs to do. To be totally honest, I probably need to tighten this up a little bit. The top, middle, bottom funnel is a little bit hit and miss, to be totally honest. So do give it a once over. If the output's a little bit crap, sorry about that. I'm working on it. But it's good from a high level to give us like some early indications whether keywords are not relevant, because we do actually have a not relevant option within there. As you can see down here, whether it's on the top, middle, sort of things like that. So it will still help save time in sorting through a mammoth sort of quantity of keywords, which really is what we're aiming to do with this. Now, what model is this AI agent using? It's totally up to you. So there's a company called OpenRouter that we can tag on to the AI agent in the chat model down here. Now, you can add your own GPT, your Claude, whatever model that you're using. With OpenRouter, what's fascinating with them is you can sign up to their system, you can add in your own API keys, or you can add credits to the system. And what this allows us to do is we can actually connect to any model that we wish. So for me, if like, for example, I know that Claude Code is a little bit better on the writing side. I will use Claude Code, not Claude Code, Claude Sonnet on the writing side. If I need something a little bit deeper, I might use Opus. If I want to maybe do something on the sort of coding side, I might use GPT. Images, I might use Flux. It gives us, it's essentially a one-stop shop for all the models, which becomes far easier to manage than trying to set up all the individual APIs. So it's up to you if you want to use it. I much prefer it. And then you can also sort of see the cost of the runs, sort of directly in OpenRouter as well, which is pretty cool. So once the AI agent's sort of done its thing, I've then got it to go through another sort of parse keyword node. So again, this is another formatter. And the one thing that you'll appreciate with n8n is you need to make sure that the format of the data is correct so that each node can sort of understand it. So the output, the output of the agent looked a little bit like this, which is a little bit all over the place, right? So it's given it in the JSON that we want, but we need all of these sort of categories to be given like their own field, their own sort of defined category instead of just output and then dumping everything in that output. So again, I asked ChatGPT to give me a way to sort of format the data, and it gave me this sort of code down here. And again, I don't really understand what it means, but I know what it does, and that's the key thing. So what this node has done is it's sorted all of the sort of messy data on the left-hand side from the AI agent into a cleaner output on the right-hand side, where we've got keyword, search volume, KD, CPC, cluster category, page type. So you can see the data is sort of starting to come together now, which is awesome. So the next and penultimate part of this journey is we now need to add in our Google Search Console data. So with Google Search Console, you can only check one query at a time. So this means that we need to run each query individually via the API. So what we do with this is we create something called a loop, and it looks a little bit like this. If you come over to the left-hand side, and we Google loop, it looks like this. So loop over items, bracket split in batches. Now you'll notice down here that at the top we've got a done, sort of like a completion point, and we've got a loop point. So what we need to do here is connect our loop point with Google Search Console, and then we've got a data mapping node. And the goal of this is that it will loop through every keyword until we have all the data that is necessary to complete the data set that we're looking for. And then the done node sends this data to collect results, basically. So if I give you a bit of insight into what this looks like, we've got 638 runs here. So each one is a keyword that takes all the data in. Search Console, funny enough, doesn't always give us all the data actually in the node on the right-hand side. So also a good sort of chain of thought of n8n is the input is in the left, the brain is in the middle, and the output is on the right. So if you're trying to think about, from a formatting perspective, that's sort of in general how it works. And how we set up the Google Search Console node. So again, this is an HTTP because we're going to a third-party site. We need to create an HTTP request. We need to go back into Cloud Console. It's a post request up here. And to get the URL, this is buried in the Search Console API documentation. But again, you know what I'm going to say. Use GPT to give you the URL. You need to make sure that the URL is dynamically pulled from the domain that has been given in our input here. And then you just need to make sure the structure is set up correctly. So it usually looks like this, where we have searchconsole.googleapis.com, webmasters v3 sites, the dynamic sort of domain selection, and you might need to configure this a little bit. So even recently, I was having a bit of back and forth as to get the correct URL. So, I will literally screenshot a error in, in the GPT, and it will give me the output that I need. Nothing super high agency about this, I promise you. Ask for the specific URL, and then give it the API documentations as well, just to check, and it will create that. And then ask it to give the body as well. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. As I said, there's infinite ways to create a workflow in n8n. So in some cases you can use a JSON. I'm using a raw sort of content type because what we're trying to pull. It just worked a little bit better, but this might not necessarily be the case for all of you. Now, again, if you don't want to go through this whole process, sign up's a link in the description and you get all of this free of charge in a very simple download. But yeah, that sort of completes the Search Console node. As I said, just explain to ChatGPT what you're trying to get out of it, and it will give you the URL and the body to reference down here. One easy slip up, just make sure you've got expression clicked down here. If you put fixed, none of the dynamic variables are going to work. So something just to bear in mind. The edit fields node. So this is obviously a node that we've used quite a few times. This is pretty much just used to map the data from those previous two nodes into a format that is more easily understood going into the next section. So again, nothing I would get too sort of bogged down about. And because we have various sort of data sources coming in, we put in a collect results node. This was something that AI suggested I do, so I did. And it enabled the system to work more efficiently, so that's great. Now, the final bit of this, and you might think the most simple part of this process is pushing this into a Google Sheet, but maybe for some sort of more experienced people in n8n, this bit is quite simple. For me, a little bit less so, I'll be honest. So instead of just firing this into a create spreadsheet and it pushes the data into that sheet, and of course that would be super simple. Unfortunately, Google Sheets does not like to play ball quite a lot of the time. So although this system looks a little bit convoluted and a little bit messy, it does mean that we can create the Google Sheet, a single Google Sheet with all keywords, instead of potentially running into areas where we create 600 spreadsheets for the 600 keywords and, you know, a load of messes that I've gone into plenty of times in the past. So we've got, again, another if node here. So what this is essentially saying from a high level is that if we're just looking to create one spreadsheet, which we are, we just want the data. So you'll see here, just one item. We just want it to run once. So it's called it's been named a run once gate, because that's what GPT said to do. We then have a create spreadsheet node. So an important thing to remember is you create the spreadsheet in one node, then you edit the sheet in another node. You don't do create spreadsheet and edit spreadsheet all in the same node. It doesn't work like that. So this create spreadsheet node creates the blank spreadsheet, and it also creates all the metadata for the sheet as well, very unhelpfully. So all sort of useless data you don't need. And it also gives us a spreadsheet URL as well, which is also quite important. We put in the data from the run once gate here into the title. So this essentially plugs in the domain, which is dynamic. We then have a static keyword research dash focus keyword, and then a focus keyword again is pulled from the input node straight from the start. And if I just show you, you can see what this looks like. So we've got the domain at the top here, got our keyword research dash focus keyword, and then we've got the seed keyword that we added. So that's how we create the title, and then that's the document created. So again, to sort of create this spreadsheet, you don't need to go into the pane, you need to go to the drop down, create new credential, and quite simply just go through the walkthrough. It's very, very straightforward. Resources, document, operation, create, and then add in the title again as an expression. So this will create the sheet. We then plug it into a merge node. When we are creating the actual content, we actually need to fire this into a false node, which doesn't make loads of sense to me, but it works. Jump into prepare rows. And then what this does is, again, this sort of formats it into a way that we can then push it into Google Sheets. If I come into executions, actually, okay, I'm just going to give you an example of one I did a bit earlier. So if I come into prepare rows, so you'll see that it takes the inputs from the left-hand side, and then the output is more of this sort of cleaner table setup that we're looking for. And this is kind of where all the data has started to come together now. So we've got our cluster, our keyword, our search volume, category, page type, CPC, KD impressions, all the Search Console data that we need. And this kind of looks ready to go. So, if all else fails, you've actually got your data here. You can probably extract that manually into a spreadsheet, but we don't want to do that, do we? This then all gets fired into a merge node. So the merge node is essentially saying, here's the spreadsheet, here's the data, putting it all together. And then we need to create a separate sheet node, as I said. What we're going to do is we need to pull the document ID. So this is the create spreadsheet ID that we had from all the way back here. So quite simply what we need to do, okay, I can't do this because I'm in an editor sort of looking back, but we drag the spreadsheet ID from up here into here, and then the sheets ID you can actually see is here. So we essentially just need to pull the sheets ID down to here, and then we'll have our spreadsheet, and then we'll also have our the title of our sheet, which is keywords. And if I come back into this, you'll see at the bottom down here that the sheet is titled keywords. If we have a look at how this is set up, so resource, sheet within document, operation, append or update, we add the two IDs. And then n8n very helpfully has a map automatically action, which means that we can use AI to understand all the data from the merge node here. It's pretty straightforward, right? And then it can add it into the actual sheet on the right-hand side like this. So again, this is now started to take shape. So a quick sort of high level of this bit, we create one sheet. We only want it to run once. If it runs, hundreds of times, it will create hundreds of spreadsheets. One thing I should actually add, just as a bit of a placeholder, if I come into the editor, just double check this. If you go into settings, I've got these two toggles configured. So one, always output data. Number two, execute once. As mentioned, so many times I've run this and the spreadsheet gets created hundreds of times based on the hundreds of keywords that I've generated, which isn't what I want. So these are good sort of guardrails to have in place. This goes into a merge node. So a merge node essentially just holds one bit of data whilst it waits for another. Then the actual data is sort of prepared here. So this is an edit fields node. As you can see, I've used them quite a lot because it's so important that data keeps getting formatted along the way. Otherwise, the nodes just can't talk to each other, especially when we're, putting in sort of these third-party integrations. And just in case I didn't show you, I think I might have done, but there's an integrated sort of Google Sheets node within n8n, so you don't need to set up like a separate HTTP request or anything like that, which is pretty cool. So, you can also delete sheets and get rows, update rows, whatever. But we've just got the append or update road in sheet node here. And then last but not least, we've got the Slack integration. So again, this is actually quite straightforward. If you set up the app in the back end, come down to, and again, there's a natural integration with Slack. So if I just search Slack, we've got Slack here. If I open this up, you've got so many different actions that the Slack API allows you to do, which again is really cool. So this one here was the send a message node, as you can see. So if I open this up, we've got, goes to the drop down, create a new credential, just to make sure you can get the API. It will then, you then need to drop in message, operation is send, select the channel that you want to send it to. So you can send it to a user or a channel. I always create a separate channel within Slack that I fire all this stuff to. Simple text message. And then again, just ask ChatGPT how to pull the spreadsheet URL with a defined title, so it looks a little bit like this. So we've got title is here, so it's the domain, keyword research, focus keyword, as we outlined in the sheet. We've got the number of keywords that it's added, and then we've got a link to the document down here. Now you can configure this to read however you want, really. And all we do is we just put in the spreadsheet. We just put in the spreadsheet, not the ID, but the URL, which which is somewhere down here. Here it is. So spreadsheet URL down here. As for the title, that's for the document, and then the title, we have defined up at the top. So the title is here. And lastly, just as a bit of a guardrail, I'll always put execute once, just in case, again, system creates hundreds of spreadsheets, the workflow runs, and then it fires hundreds of times into Slack. Yes, I have done that plenty of times. So this is a fantastic guardrail to keep in place with a Slack integration. And that about wraps it up. I hope that was super useful. This wasn't a live build, which I have done in the past. This was more of a retrospective look back as to what I did. So I didn't go through as much of, I didn't go through any of the problem solving really that I usually would. But hopefully you guys have found some value in this. Hopefully it's a little bit cleaner as well. I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts on that. I might still do a live build of this or a keyword research workflow anyway, so you can go through sort of the trials and tribulations and I'll build it from the node up. But if you enjoyed this video, thank you for sticking to the end. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you want access to the workflow, just sign up to the link in the description. Check out the Notion board and you're free to download and get started. Until then, I'll see you on the next video.